Welcome, everyone. I am Susie Tobias, nutritionist, functional medicine practitioner, and I want to talk to you today about the Lifewave patches and preparing for a detox. But even more so, I want to talk about some things first and foremost that I've seen that maybe some people are talking about, maybe they're not talking about, and I can kind of do some troubleshooting on what's happening and why. Okay, so I've had several people where I've put patches on them, just the X39, and all of a sudden their balance is off. Okay, so ready to fall over. I had somebody up on a ladder. She was like, "What's going on? This is odd for me. I don't have balance issues, and all of a sudden I'm gonna fall on my face." Okay. I've seen people put the patches on and just not feel well and just have head pressure and all these different weird things. And so the bottom line is this: there's a couple of things that can be going on here. Number one is there can be some dysregulation with the nervous system, meaning it's not running the way that it should. Okay, the yin, the yang, they're not going the right directions. Or we've got some imbalances in the upper and lower half and in the meridians. All right, so that could be one of the problems. The other thing is you could be pushing detoxification. So if we're adding in like the glutathione patch, for instance, if somebody is not able to detox well and you jump to that stage, all of a sudden they can have body pain and not feel well. Okay. And we don't want people to be discouraged. We don't want people to be frustrated, and we don't want people to not use the patches because the patches are such an amazing thing. However, we do need to understand that these are acupressure points, okay, that we're dealing with here. And if energy is not running correctly or the body's not detoxing right, we can throw everything into a bad situation. So kicking off with this, I want to talk a little bit about, let me see where we're at. Oh, our disclaimer, always check with your doctor before you do anything. Okay, I'm not your doctor. All right, so what I want to talk first and foremost is about methylation. Methylation is the precursor for detoxification. So if you were to look at this is part of, not the entire chain here, but this is part of what the methylation cycle looks like. Okay, so you have the folate pathway. Basically, we're trying to pass off methyl groups over to others, into the other cycle, into the methionine cycle. Bottom line is we're trying to get everybody to Sammy. All right, Sammy's kind of like the deliverer of the goods. I'd like to call Sammy like Santa. Sammy's job is to bring it down to the transsulfuration pathway to create glutathione at the end. Okay, now if we're not able to transfer methyl groups, if we're not methylating well, what can happen is you can throw on glutathione and your methylation can be not working well, and you can have all sorts of weird symptoms. Okay, so it won't work well. So we have to kind of always go back to the foundations. Everything is all about foundations, and methylation is the precursor leading up to detoxification. So I just kind of wanted to give you a really basic, easy to look at, especially if you're somebody who has the MTHFR gene mutation. This is critical for you. It's important that you guys are taking the right folate and you're taking the right B12, because in the synthetic forms, it can make things really wonky for you. All right. So going into, the precursor of that, we're looking at like I said, the B vitamins. So B12, B2, folate, magnesium, SAMe. Okay. And like I said, the MTHFR gene mutation kind of plays a really big role in all of this. Okay, so in order for methylation to happen, these things need to happen. All right, you have to have cofactors, is what I'm getting at. So it's about 9, which is folic acid. And when I say folic acid, I mean in the right form. Okay, folic acid. If you see that on a bottle in a synthetic form, it is no bueno. Okay, it's going to junk your trunk up. Same thing with B12 and cyanocobalamin. Okay, that is a synthetic form, and that can be very problematic. So you would want to take it in a different form, like adecenol or hydroxy or methylated B12. Same thing with methylated methyl tetrahydrofolate or folinic acid, which are all the better forms and not going to give you problems. So these are cofactors to make sure that your body is actually methylating. All right. It's like for that whole cycle to kick off, you got to have all these guys active. So when it comes down to the other problems that I'm seeing is drainage pathways. All right. So meaning this, if you're not pooping, peeing, or sweating, you got problems. I'm just going to tell this right now. Our body eliminates toxins through your urine, your skin, and your stool. All right. Now, this is the deal. You can be methylating, you can do all these things, right? We're doing great. However, if you're not eliminating, all of these toxins are going to recirculate through the body back into the liver. And what will happen is when there's excess toxins in the body, the toxins will store into the joints and the tissues to protect the organs. I love the way God designed this. I think that's pretty cool one to say. So it's super important that you are pooping at least 2 times a day. And the amount of stool that should come out of somebody daily, wrist to elbow. Okay. And normally when I tell people that, they're like, ah, doesn't have to happen at one time, but it should. Okay. So at least 2 times a day. Sweating, you got to make sure your body's able to sweat. If you're somebody who said, it comes to me and you're like, hey, I don't sweat, I can tell you, you're not methylating. I'm going to say that right now. You were having big problems within that whole pathway. And then your urine. Okay. So we want to be drinking water like it's your job as we're preparing to detox anything, but even through the regular day, you want to make sure you're getting good fluids in, especially when you're wearing the patches. It's one of the things that people really miss. Okay. You have to be very well hydrated when you're using the patches, or they're not that effective. So symptoms. Okay. So when we're going into a detox, all right. So there's protocols for detoxing with the patches, right? And there's also just protocols for detoxing, period. And symptoms that you could feel. Okay. Like I mentioned before, body pain and joint pain. Okay. This is when your body's trying to protect itself and you'll feel like you have the flu. All of a sudden you'll be like, why does my body not feel good? Okay. This is toxins. And it's funny because people will tell me, I'm sick. And I'm like, are you? Are you sure? I know we're detoxing right now, and I'm thinking it might be that. Okay. So you could have brain fog, you could have digestive issues, fatigue, headaches, nausea. Like all of these are normal signs when you're dealing with a detox. Okay. So if these things come up, don't be shocked, don't be surprised, and don't run away from it. The answer is to handle it well. Okay, now how do we handle it well? We would want to look at binders. Okay, so maybe you're going to take activated charcoal, some chlorella, bentonite K. Like anytime you take a binder, though, make sure that you're taking this at least 2 hours away from any supplement or medication, because it will bind and pull that out as well. But the binders are great because they pull toxins into the GI tract and you poop them out. And it's funny because people will be like, Susie, I'm dying. I'm going to need Tylenol. And I'm like, not going to touch it. I'm telling you right now, you take out all you want. And we give them a binder. And all of a sudden they're like, what'd you give me? That's so much better. So that's another key point to this. Celtic sea salt, getting the minerals back in. All right. Dry brushing is another way to get lymphatic waste moving. Epsom salt baths are great for pulling toxins out of the skin. Like I mentioned before, sweating. Okay. Using things like fulvic and humic acid and lymphatic massage. Okay. These are all additions, all things and tools basically for you to help with detox. And so you're not having those symptoms and you feel better. Basically, this is the deal. If you're going through it, don't stop. Okay. Because again, your liver is kicking out all these things and all these toxins. The answer is, how can I get through this the best possible way so I'm feeling better on the other side? I mentioned there's certain supplements to help with detoxing. Again, activated charcoal, bentonite clay. There's things like dandelion. Dandelion is really great for the liver. Electrolytes, huge. Okay, so you could use Celtic sea salt. You could use things like LMNT. There's a bunch of different electrolytes out there. Always be a label reader though, because you'd be surprised what synthetic B12 is in there. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I see this commonly. All right. Again, fulvic and humic acid, glutathione. These are things that can help with it. Milk thistle for the liver, just really helping flush the liver out. NAC is a precursor for glutathione. That's helpful as well. Vitamin C. And the methylation supplements that I mentioned before, the correct B vitamins, magnesium, and sometimes SAMe. Okay, so SAMe is as I showed you in the map, okay, we're trying to get everybody over to SAMe. Now, if you take a SAMe supplement, sometimes SAMe doesn't get down through there, okay, because there's issues down in the transsulfuration pathway. Maybe you've got a genetic SNP down there, the CBS gene, and it's throwing things off. If you take the supplement SAMe, it can actually just push it straight through and actually allow your body to detox and create glutathione. It's pretty boss. So it's always a good thing to keep in your back pocket. So when you're detoxing, all right, we also want to avoid inflammatory foods, all right? So we're looking at things like corn and dairy and gluten, things that are GMO, things that are processed, soy and sugar. These are all the top inflammatory foods. So you're not doing yourselves any favor is what I'm getting at. If you're going to go into a detox phase with the patches or anything else, and you're eating inflammatory foods, it's going to be fighting against you. Okay. We want to make sure that we are doing things the right way and helping the body as much as you can. So polarity, and you're like, Susie, what the heck is polarity? Okay. This is probably my favorite thing on the planet to figure out. All right. So polarity is basically, we're looking at how energy is flowing through the body. All right. So we want energy flowing in the correct places. Now, there's a test you can do to actually figure out, what is my nervous system doing? Is it working well? So I'm going to show you real fast. So if you were to stand up, let's put it back here, and you were to put your feet together, touching, okay, and you stick your hand above your head like this, naturally, you should fall forward, okay? And if you flip the hand over and you're standing straight up like this, naturally, you should fall backward. I think that's super cool because I didn't do that. My body, my energy is running in the right place. Now, what I have found, okay, I'll have people, before we do any kind of detoxing, okay, I want to check their polarity. How's the energy moving through the body? And sometimes it'll be reversed, where somebody will put their hand over their head like this, and they'll go backwards. And they'll flip it and they'll go forwards, which should be the right, which isn't the right way. Or they stay here and they're just stuck. Or they go side to side. I watched somebody tip over twice yesterday. Yeah. So that would be an imbalance in the energy systems. Okay. So when we're having blockages, it's important that we unblock things before you go into a detox or anything else. Okay. Especially if you're going to go into any kind of good, more comprehensive protocols. You want to make sure everything is able to move well through the body. And if it's not, if things get stuck, it's not fun. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I've put patches on people who energy was stuck and they felt terrible, like absolutely terrible. So it's important to get those things worked out before you do a lot of things. So when it comes down to it, we first want to look at opening up the 4 gates. Okay, so we're looking at liver 3 and liver 14. Okay, so the hands and then the feet. Okay, these are part of opening up the 4 gates. This is getting energy moving the right places. Okay, so we want energy going right where it needs to be going. And within that, we also want to use GV14, GV17, and CV4. Okay, so these are going to help open up the gates. Now it's interesting to see. I've used this. I've had my husband use this, opening up the gates, and it's amazing to just watch everything heightens. Like sound is louder. Everything is, I mean, you can feel the shift when you're opening up the gates. Okay. Now, if you open up the gates though, and then you have somebody test polarity after we open up the gates and they're still stuck or they're still going side to side, that says, okay, we've got some issues. All right. So now we need to move on to what would be next. What's next on our chart? We would look at the upper and lower body imbalances. Okay. So now we're going to have to shift things a little bit. All right. And move things around to try and get things back into where they should be. All right. So we go down this direction and it kind of takes a few days. I'm just going to tell you this right now. Same thing with opening up the gates. If they're not okay, you know what I'm saying? Or even I have somebody go 3 days first for opening up the 4 gates. And if we have no resolution just there, then I move into the upper and lower imbalances. And this is one of those things too, you need to stay here for a couple of days to try and really get this where it needs to be. And same thing with the split meridians. We will go into adding these as well, because this is another common place where things get stuck. Lastly, we're looking, I always have, can't miss this. And this is the CV and the GB, the yin and the yang, okay, on the energy. Actually, this is probably the first step after realizing if somebody's stuck in the forward and backward motion, okay, I would jump straight to this one right here first. If somebody, and that means if they're going backwards instead of forwards and forwards instead of backwards, I would jump straight to this one. The other ones where they're going sideways or not moving at all, that's when I would do the upper, lower, and the meridians. And then if you're not feeling any difference also within that, you can switch them in reverse, because sometimes people just don't feel things correctly. So these are really great things to know, all right? Because I think, again, if you're not educated in this and you don't understand how the whole system works, and you're trying these different patches and you're trying to feel better, and all of a sudden you're feeling worse, again, you got to troubleshoot. You got to start with foundations. Okay. And again, I always will go back to methylation and elimination first. Is somebody methylating and are they eliminating? And if they're not, okay, so we have to open up all those pathways, but then also doing the testing polarity and seeing which way is it running, which areas do we need to fix. And once we get all of that in the right place, that's when we go into a detox or a more comprehensive protocol, okay? Because we don't want energy to be blocked anywhere. Blocked energy is going to cause friction, and it's going to cause things to not feel good. And that's so big signs. Be very aware of your body, and also be very aware of how it's feeling. If you're feeling, where are you feeling pain at? Okay, because that might be where we want to maybe focus more on the blockage. And a lot of people will jump straight to, oh, it's pain, it needs a patch. I pull back. Okay. My response to that is no. Let's go back to foundations. Let's go back to methylation, elimination, and look at polarity. Okay. And once we've checked off those boxes, because usually you're going to find something in there, you will. Then, okay, now let's add a patch in. But the first answer to things not working well, I feel worse and everything else, is not to slap on another patch. It's to figure out foundationally what's happening within the body so we can make things work well. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here for it.